locally as well as
Great.
globally.
So I'll start with the Sorry, this time my connection got disrupted. So what I'll do is we'll discuss a little bit about US economy, how it is going, and then a little bit of China, and then we'll dwell into India and what's the India macro and how the story is unfolding. And then we can do with a little bit of sector analysis if needed at last, right?
Yes.
Sounds good. Yeah.
Just a second, Satish.
Sure, no problem.
Harish, Nayantara, Mahalakshmi, you want to let people in?
Yes, sir.
Should we let people in? It's already 8 minutes late.
Yeah, we are running late a little bit.
Mahalakshmi?
Yes, sir. Participants are admitted. They are in.
Yeah, so should we start?
Yes, sir. You can start.
Brilliant. Morning, folks. This is Mayuresh Joshi from William O'Neill. First of all, can you hear me loud and clear? Can you see me? Can you hear me? Can you see Satish as well onto your screen? Satish, can I have an audio check?
Yeah, hi, good morning. Yeah, you can. Hi, good morning, everyone.
Brilliant. So can you see us? I mean, just a few thumbs up.
First. Yeah.
We should start ASAP tips. So Satish, a few more people are entering. Just give them a minute. So, apologies for the delay. There's some issue on my laptop, so I could not log in. So I had to log in on my mobile. So that's the reason for the delay that you probably got today. But thank you so much, everyone, for taking out time. I know it's a long weekend. Exams are over, so most of you will be making your plans. But since you've taken time out to hear Satish out, a big thank you from me and the entire video meeting, and a special thanks to Satish. So let's kick off today's webinar. I've got a very special guest, Satish Diwan, with me today. You can see him on your screens. You obviously know him. He's a renowned personality in the field of finance. He's a certified financial advisor himself. He's got more than 16 years of experience, primarily within the banking and the financial services space. Has worked with institutions like ICICI, Nirmal Bank in the past. And he is a training professional both in terms of financial planning. He's done a CFT as well as an expert in terms of financial markets per se as well. So thank you, Satish, for taking our time for speaking to us and larger audience at Markets with India and elsewhere as well.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Mayuresh, for such a wonderful introduction. And thanks to you and your team for giving the opportunity of, sharing my views on market insights today. And hopefully for next 1 hour, I'll be able to add value to the participants who are there. So if you can just confirm me, like, should we stick to English or should we have a mix of English and Hindi both? Like,
I think we can have a mix as it suits your comfort.
Correct. No problem. So,
and I'm pretty sure everybody will be mighty. They'll have mighty takeaways in the next 1 hour that you're going to speak. So there's no issue.
Yeah.
So let's jump right in, Satish.
Sure.
2023-24 has been a stellar financial year in terms of markets. Nifty moved 30-odd% in the year, the mid cap 60, small cap 70-odd%. And most of the portfolios, whether you did something or not, have done really well, even if you held on to your position markets. So, I think, do you think such kind of returns can get replicated in the next financial year? If yes, reasons. If no, reasons.
See, to be very honest, this kind of stellar performance in mid and small cap, which was a little bit overdue in Indian equity market as per se, because the mid cap and small cap was underperforming in the last couple of years, say in 2018 correction or 22 correction also. So there is obviously a reason behind mid cap and small cap performing so much. It has been supported by a little bit of the earnings that these companies are growing up with CAGR of 37%, 35% in mid cap and small cap segments. But to replicate this similar kind of return would be a little over exaggerated, I would say. So there would be obviously some challenges and some limitations to this kind of return profile, where the money was being made in a broader sense in all segments, whether, as you rightly said, that if you had done nothing also, and if you had just had the strategy of buy and hold, then also you have made money across the sector. But going forward, I don't think that this strategy will hold too much of return, because there are some pockets where a little bit of, you can say, bubble of froth has been created, whether it's in mid cap or small cap. But having said that, there is still an opportunity in those segments where I think the returns could be fairly large compared to the large cap stocks in next 3 to 5 years going ahead. So as an investor, one should be wary about the risks that small caps come up with. And we have seen in the past, like in the year, say 2007-8, where the small cap corrected about 80%. And then it took almost a decade to again come back to that levels of 2018-19. So everything has to take into consideration. And me as a financial planner, so our first goal is to align your investment with your goal and horizon, and you should understand what investment that you are entering into it. So historically, small and mid cap is a sector which is, yes, volatile. But if you are invested and if you are getting into good stocks, quality stocks, if you can do your research at your own level, then it's good. Otherwise, there are people, professional, who are doing that for you. And if you stay invested for a longer horizon, then more than 5 years, I think, would be minimum justification period where it will average out the returns. Say, suppose 70% as last year we were able to generate. And this year, if it's not 70, then if it's anywhere, say between 30 to 40%, then also on a longer term, the averages out to a small cap return, which we say a CAGR of rolling returns about 20-25% of bracket. So yes, seeing both the parameters about risk and returns, one should invest accordingly.
Oh, fair enough, Satish. So I think we'll obviously break this up as we get into the discussion over the next 45 minutes to an hour, in terms of where the froth is building up as per your expectations, where there are pockets where strength can still lie. And absolutely, I think your point well taken in terms of the moderation that one needs to really now expect in terms of market returns. But historically, as you've seen, it should be on a steady growth path. So do you see a structural downside to the markets then, Satish, in this sense?
Not really. Structural downside would be a little over exaggerated word. I think the structurally we are in fact building up, if I say so, because in India there was been there is a term called GFCF, where it is gross fixed capital formation, which was picked up from the year 2000 till 2008, where there were investments into capital formation, which led to infrastructure building and economic growing. And it started from year 2000 till 2007-8, and it grows from 20% to around 34%. And then we saw a downfall into those capital formation into economy. So from 2008 till 2000, I would say 18, there was a decline in the ratio of how much capital was being infused to make those infrastructure. But now steadily we are again seeing that cycle turning from 2018-19 and going forward, where the government spending is increasing, capex is increasing. we see more of structural development being, the path being developed, and there on which the economy should be doing good and the company should be doing good. So if I sum it up, there are basically two things in an economy which generally holds. One is investment, other one is consumption, right?
Correct.
So investments can come up with two generally major part. One is a private investments, or is it the government investment which is done. So if you see in the era of 2000, 2007, 8, there were more of private capex which was happening. Companies which are coming up with big power plant and big energy development was happening all over the place. And if you can recall in 2008 bubble, that what bursted, it was because of one of the large cap power company which IPOs took down the market. And that was the time I started my career, and it was like a big bang. And that time, what we had learned and what we had studied in our MBA classes, nothing was being going into the market. So after that, the structural changes happened, and then the company were nowhere, willing to invest into capex and getting into it. In fact, if you would ask me 5 years back, that will you be investing into any of the PSU sector or this capital intensive companies, I would say surely no, because they were not making money for last 10, 12 years for consumers. But as we go ahead and as the interest rate cycle has turned up, now this undervalued company, which was not earning good, the multiples were low. Now they have started, again coming into the picture, and अभी वो मार्केट की थोड़े फेवरेट सेक्टर्स हो गए हैं. All of a sudden the PSUs have started attracting valuation, and जो बहुत cheap था, now it has come into I would say a moderate valuation. Still there are companies who are valuation is still lower than on an average valuation what they were used to trade before that. So I think there's still a lot of money to be made in those sectors. We need to specify, we need to analyze, and we need to pick up those sectors and company specific, where we can have a view on a micro basis. But if you're a stock picking guy, then bottom up approach would be good, कि आप जो है जहाँ पर अच्छी कंपनियां चुने, जिनके मैनेजमेंट अच्छे हो, जिनके वैल्यूएशन अच्छे हो, then you can, if you are bullish on a sector, और अगर आपको कोई sector अच्छा लग रहा है, then you can pick and choose some of the companies by doing analysis. So that's my take would be on.
So I think I'll come down in terms of what your criteria are for stock picking as well within the sectors that you like. But then if there is no structural downside for the markets, obviously we've braced ourselves locally and globally as well. All global markets have done phenomenally well as well. So what are those outside risks? From an India perspective, I think a lot of people speak about geopolitical risks, saying Indian economy, as you're rightly pointing out, is on a very strong footing. Whatever might happen for the globe. So what are those outside risks that the market probably have as we head into 24-25, financial year 24-25?
See, the major part would be, I think as you rightly pointed out, the geopolitical risk, which is there, because more than 50 countries are going into election this year, including India and US, which are some of the top democracy country in the world. So there would be a geopolitical risk would be there. But if you ask me about in India, the risks would be a little minimized. Why? Because if we have seen in the past the election result, what the market has anticipated, and if the election outcome is the same, then the market reward and the volatility, but obvious would be increasing, but market reward larger extent. And if you go by the data, then pre-election for say 6 months, the market always been on given a double-digit return. जहाँ पर Sensex has given a return of say 11 to 12% also pre-election 6 months rally happening into it. So the risks would be geopolitical, and then again some activities which are still there, like we see Russia-Ukraine is still going on, and the Red Sea, that those supply issue can again crop up. So those risks would be there. To mitigate that risk, I think if a person has a long-term view, those risks would minimize. आपके portfolio को अगर आपका एक लंबा व्यू पॉइंट है, तो ये इस तरह के रिस्क आएंगे मार्केट में, पहले भी थे, अभी भी हैं, और फ्यूचर में भी रहेंगे. बट being an investor, your job is to stay invested into market, and and try to capture the bigger trend rather than शॉर्ट टर्म वॉलेटिलिटी में ना फंस के एक बड़े ट्रेंड को कैप्चर करने की कोशिश करें, जो कि इंडिया में या एज इन वर्ल्ड एज इन होल जो चल रहा है. बिकॉज इफ यू सी एज इन होल यूएस का जो S&P 500 इंडेक्स है हैज गिवन अ ब्रेकआउट ऑफ 8-10 years जो चल रहा है. जापान हैज गिवन अ ब्रेकआउट आफ्टर सच अ बिग 3 decades of downturn. Euro also has given a breakout. So this kind of a breakout when the major economies are coming into into market, so the view is positive going forward, and the risk would be there, is always there, but one has to be take into consideration that if you stay invested for longer term, you will make money no matter what happens in the world.
No, fair enough. I think long-term investors obviously have a say, but let me play the devil's advocate here, Satish. Liquidity, let us admit that it is going to get tightened over the next few quarters and next couple of years as well.
Right.
The Japanese central bank policy has reversed. So the loose monetary
Correct.
policy, the liquidity that was sloshing around the global economy, is going to come off. So in this scenario, how do you see the market performing purely from a liquidity perspective? And do you think the domestic retail investors who have contributed significantly, who have had the patience in these markets per se, hats off to them, that will still continue? Because what we've seen so far is that everything is bullish, everything is optimistic, and we've seen historic past that for events unknown to the market, something happens and the market suddenly corrects. So in this sense, I think if liquidity is going to come off, how will that have a say in terms of global markets, Indian markets as well? And that is that one part of your thesis in terms of why the markets might not do as phenomenally well as we did last year?
Yeah, it definitely adds to that point. But just to add on to that, the liquidity tightening has been doing from last 2 to 3 years. And going forward, if the rate cuts start happening, I think there would be some liquidity which again will come into the market after the Fed start cutting the rates. And
Sure.
coming to the India point, if you can repeat what you ask about India. About Indian, as an Indian investments,
Indian investors have held up their conviction.
Correct.
If for any reason the market's correct,
Yes,
and
yes.
there is an flow, do you see a prolonged period where there is a time correction which happens into the market?
See, time correction is being happening for last 6 months, which the market didn't perform, was in a tight range, and it just gave a breakout this week itself. So time correction is happening into the market, and giving how the new investor have come into the market, especially after COVID. So they are quite vigilant to invest no matter what. अब उनको ये कंडीशनिंग हो गई है कि बॉस अगर मार्केट नीचे जा रहा है तो हमें इन्वेस्टेड रहना है, हमारी एसआईपी चलती रहनी चाहिए मार्केट करेक्शन में, बल्कि अपॉर्चुनिटी है पैसे और डालने की, ना कि निकालने की, विच इज अ मेजर शिफ्ट which I can see in most of the HNI investors and retail investors as well, where जहाँ पर आप अगर आप देखोगे तो अनइंटेंडेड पैसा भी आ रहा है मार्केट में. So say suppose कि people are not very very savvy of कि म्यूचुअल फंड्स में क्या है नहीं है. इनफैक्ट we come across with some of the clients जिनको ये नहीं पता कि SIP और म्यूचुअल फंड्स एक ही चीज है. SIP is just a mode of payment. They think that SIP is separate investment and mutual fund is something different. So they say नहीं, मुझे SIP करनी है, म्यूचुअल फंड का मेरे को नहीं पता है. So उस टाइप के पैसे भी आ रहे हैं इंडियन मार्केट में, जहाँ पर Tier 2, Tier 3 cities के people are starting investing into SIP, and there is a major shift now. अगर आप मतलब 2000 में अगर आपको if you see the FIs holding into India, it's been lowest at this decade, like for last जो decade में जो holding थी in the same person of 18%, and the kind of inflow that is happening into Indian market is phenomenal. 35 to 30 billion dollars per annum coming into India, as in 60% contribute by mutual fund, 24% is being contributed by EPFO and NPS, and 16% through insurance. So person who is not understanding that also is investing into the market. Now say suppose आपका अगर पीएफ का ईपीएफ का पैसा कट रहा है, तो आप चाहो ना चाहो उसका सम पोर्शन इज गेटिंग इन्वेस्टेड इनटू द मार्केट. So now when the government, if they increase that allocation further going ahead, then again your money is equity में और बड़ा पैसा आएगा. And in fact, जिस हिसाब से people are getting more of कि NPS में आप डालो पैसा तो you'll get additional 50,000 का tax benefit. So that is attracting more, and in fact वहां से भी एक अच्छा inflow आ रहा है जो कि direct equity में जा रहा है, direct stock market में जा रहा है. So this flow, and this is a steady flow. Now अब ये जो steady flow जो equity markets में आ रहा है, mutual fund companies also investment managers जो हैं, they are also having a view, and with that view they are able to invest in those companies, and some of उनकी predictability high हो गई कि उनको पता है कि इतना पैसा मेरे को हर महीने आना है. सो दे कैन ऑल्सो टेक अ कॉल अकॉर्डिंगली कि मुझे कहाँ इन्वेस्ट करना है, लिक्विडिटी कितनी अच्छी है. जो स्ट्रेस टेस्ट में अभी सामने आया that people that how much after the regulatory came with this guidelines, and now this will be happening every month. So now people can be more aware of what in the fund that they are investing in, so how liquid they are, and what's the liquidity ratio. So that is again one quality checkup which investor can do, and which we do for our clients to make them analyze about picking up good mutual fund or good funds to invest in.
No, thanks to folks like you, Satish. I think financial advisors like you, planners like you, that the retail investor has the confidence of bringing in money into the market, and may your community train, advise more and more retail investors into the market and creating
to stay invested.
Hats off to you guys. So I think that's a fair bit in terms of macros as far as Indian markets and the global equities are concerned. Now let's come a little bit more in terms of the micros, Satish. Now most sectors along with the markets have done phenomenally well, right? Except for large cap stocks, which have just started moving. So the large cap banks compared to the larger universe are still laggards in a way. To that extent, I think auto companies have just started moving, the larger ones. So the large cap names have just started moving with all the elements that we just spoke about in terms of what was happening in terms of SEBI, the ANPI, the stress test scenario, some over exaggeration that happened. In your opening remarks, you mentioned that there were some pockets of over exuberance that are happening within the broader markets. Do you want to specify those pockets?
Yeah. So say suppose coming first on the large caps thing. Now, if you identify the large cap stock that we are talking about, basically, so whatever stocks name that I am sharing is just for educational purpose, and there is a disclaimer from my side that I'm not a SEBI investment advisor, so don't take it for any investment or that kind of suggestion. Consult your financial advisor before doing that. Coming to large cap stocks, some of the stocks which we are and everyone talks about, maybe like an SDFC Bank or Asian Paints or Hindustan Unilever, HUL, which stocks had done phenomenally well in the last decade, and it was kind of a darling of stock market where they were having a CAGR and everyone was jumping into investing into it, and it was making money. But now we need to understand that the size that these companies have grown into, as in India context, it's very difficult for them to grow at that level and deliver that kind of return. So see, every cycle, every economy or every company goes through a cycle, right? It's first the initial phases, then it's the growth phase, and then there's a mature phase. So these some of the large names, some of the large companies that we are discussing are maybe on a what you call an end of growth stage and going into a maturity stage, and to expect that kind of a growth from into that size of a company is little expectation would be little high until unless they come up with some new revenue sources, maybe a product diversification or something where they can diversify their business or make some returns out of it. So this will take time for them to deliver on that basis, and if a person's risk appetite doesn't suit him to invest into mid and small cap, I think large cap would be fair enough to make a good amount of return. And when the economy is growing at a normal GDP, say 13-14%, so these companies would fairly being going into the same kind of a rate of 13-14%, and maybe some large cap on 16%. But to expect the same kind of a return which they had delivered from last decade would be a little over ambitious, I would say. But yes, again, your expectation come into it that what kind of a return you are expecting from the market. अभी आप अगर स्मॉल कैप मिड कैप का रिटर्न एक्सपेक्ट करेंगे और लार्ज कैप की वॉलिडिटी चाहेंगे तो दैट कैन नॉट हैपन. सो लार्ज कैप अगर स्टेबल है, वॉलिडिटी कम है, तो रिटर्न भी स्टेबल एंड आपको स्टेडी रिटर्न मिलेंगे. बट अगेन द रिस्क पैरामीटर वुड बी लेस. बट यस, the kind of valuation that they are trading it right now, I think there should be allocation to some of this large cap which will be doing good. Now I'll give you an example where if you see, if you see Hindustan Unilever and ITC, what had happened with ITC? ITC didn't perform last decade, and HUL performed fantastically well.
Yeah.
Now, once the rate cut, this rate cycle started happening. Now ITC, when it has got a pricing power of passing on this high interest rate to the consumer because of their monopoly kind of a business where they can rate their cigarettes or tobacco. So they were able to pass on the interest rate burden to the consumer. And historically, if you see last 40-50 years, whenever this has happened, whenever the interest rate cycle takes a turn, or whenever it is in this cycle, ITC outperform HUL, and it's vice versa. So the company who has got the pricing power in a high inflation period, they can pass on that inflation का pressure जो margin उनके जो कम हो जाते हैं, क्योंकि आप अगर पैसे अगर आप उधार में ले रहे हैं, उनका इंटरेस्ट रेट ज्यादा है, तो वो कॉस्ट में ऐड होता है. और अगर कॉस्ट में अगर आप अपना माल भी उसी ऊंचे दाम पे अगर बेच पाए कंज्यूमर को, देन आपकी प्रॉफिट मार्जिन इफेक्ट नहीं होती है. Till that time, that monopoly or that that edge is there into the company, I think we should be doing good the company basis or as in sector basis. So you can pick and choose accordingly and then take your call.
Oh, fair enough. So I think let's go sector wise, Satish. Now, PSUs, as you pointed out, have done phenomenally well. What's your take? Whether it's PSU Power, you just pick out a PSU stock, defense, power, banks to a certain extent, which were late movers in the rally. But I think, what's your take on the entire PSU basket?
I think PSU as a sector, there is a big structural change which is happening, or it is continuous. The process is still on. The big structural change which I would firstly point out would be the thinking of head or a CFO has changed. पहले क्या था, आप पहले समझ लीजिए, अगर आपने से सपोज आपके घर पे 10 किलो सोना है, और अगर आपको कोई फाइनेंशियल डिफिकल्टीज है, तो आप अपने घर का कुछ सोना बेचकर अपनी फाइनेंशियल डिफिकल्टीज को पूरा कर रहे थे. तो अगर आप पीएसयू को देखेंगे तो पीएसयू नवरत्न जो थे वो इंडियन जेम्स थे जो भारत सरकार के पास थे. एंड जब भी इंडियन गवर्नमेंट को फिजिकल डेफिसिट हो रहा है या पैसे की जरूरत हो रही है, तो दे आर सेलिंग सम ऑफ द स्टेक एंड दे आर रेजिंग मनी आउट ऑफ इट. अब वैसा नहीं है. अब परफॉर्मेंस के ऊपर उनका ज्यादा ध्यान है, ना कि उनका एलोकेशन अपना शेयर बेचना और वहां से फिजिकल डेफिसिट को पूरा करना. सो नाउ देयर थिंकिंग हैज चेंज स्ट्रक्चरली. Now, if you see, there's a massive change into the thinking of now the heads of that PSUs. Their KRA has been, such that stock performance has also been included into their KRA, which was never ever thought of. अभी वो लीनियंसी नहीं रह गई है. पहले जो था कि लीनियंसी है, ठीक है, गवर्नमेंट कंपनीज है, काम कर रहे हैं, कुछ चल रहा है. That attitude has changed. In fact, that is a big shift which we saw. Mayuresh, are you there?
Please continue, Satish, please.
Yeah. So there is that shift which has changed. So either we speak about banks or we speak about oil and gas companies or things. Now, pehle oil and gas companies were bleeding. They were bleeding, badly, where the capital ja raha hai, government is infusing capital every day, and still they were not able to make profit. Right now, they are gaining a profit percentage of 4 to 5 rupees, which is good. अभी जो recent जो oil rate cut हुए, it was just rate cut by 2 rupees मार्केट वाज एक्सपेक्टिंग कि मे बी शायद इलेक्शन एंड पॉपुलस उसके कारण अगर ज्यादा रेट कट कर दी उन्होंने, बट 2 रुपीज रेट कट हुआ उसमें, एंड स्टिल दे आर हैविंग गुड मार्जिन. सो दैट बिग शिफ्ट इन structural mindset, I think, would be the number one reason. Second would be, once if you see, last decade, US economy was 0% interest पे चल रहा था. In fact, some of the countries got into negative also. Like countries like Japan, where the economy is such a big thing, जहाँ पर negative interest rate भी थे, 0% interest rate थे. But now as the interest rate started moving up, हुआ क्या कि जो हाई ग्रोथ कंपनीज थे, जो कि which were delivering good amount of numbers, people started booking profit into those stocks and started looking for value companies. तो पहले जहां पर ग्रोथ ने काफी अच्छा पैसा कमा के दिया, अभी people started looking for alternatives कि वहां पर भाई अभी ग्रोथ से उतना पैसा नहीं बनेगा क्योंकि इंटरेस्ट इतना ज्यादा बढ़ रहा है. व्हाट इज good proposition to invest in. वहां पर PSU came into the picture, जहां पर we were getting a much cheaper price. Now cheaper price is okay, but अगर कंपनी का ग्रोथ पर्सपेक्टिव ऐसा नहीं है और कंपनी के अगर फंडामेंटल स्ट्रक्चर अच्छा नहीं है, तो पीपल विल नॉट इन्वेस्ट इन. बट हुआ क्या कि कोविड के टाइम पे ये जितना भी पाप था ना PSU बैंकों का, उन्होंने सब धो दिया अपने. बुक्स गॉट क्लीन, देयर मैनेजर एफिशिएंसी गॉट क्लीन, और गवर्नमेंट ने सबसे अच्छा काम ये किया कि इतने सारे जो बैंक थे PSU के, उनको मर्ज कर दिया जो सिंगल वेरी बिग एंटिटी. तो अब मॉनिटरिंग करना या इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर को डिलीवर करना इज गॉट मच मोर इजियर आफ्टर दैट. एंड PSU में भी बैंकिंग स्टार्टेड taking things more seriously, and then they also started performing on their books, जो कि बुक्स क्लीन हो गई थी. पहले आई थिंक 2-3 स्ट्रक्चरल रिफॉर्म्स की वजह से भी ये चेंज आया. वंस बैंकिंग में अगर आप बात करो तो इंट्रोडक्शन ऑफ योर इंसॉल्वेंसी एंड बैंक्रप्सी एक्ट वो आने के बाद भी तो पीपल गॉट मोर थोड़ा सा व्हाट आई कॉल बी मोर अटेंशन उनका ज्यादा हो गया कि बॉस अब जो है ये कोड आ गया कि अब मेरे को, जैसे पहले क्या हो रहा था कि लोग लोन ले रहे हैं, डिफॉल्ट कर रहे हैं लार्ज प्राइवेट प्लेयर्स, बट अभी बैंकों का वो आने से, एक्ट आने से अभी है उनका वो माइंडसेट चेंज हो गया लोगों का भी, कि जो भाई अब पैसे लेंगे तो बैंक को चुकाना पड़ेगा मेरे को. ऐसा नहीं है कि पैसा लिए और वो भाग गए, and all those things are no more there into the system. So what this has facilitated is the resolution of नॉन परफॉर्मिंग एसेट जो थे बैंकिंग सेक्टर में, वो कल्चर जो है वो चेंज हो गया, एंड टाइमली पेमेंट ऑफ डेट वो आ गया सिस्टम में. एंड दे वर ऑलरेडी अंडर वैल्यूड सो मच कि उनका इट मेड सेंस फॉर इन्वेस्टर टू इन्वेस्ट इन टू दोज कंपनी कि जहाँ पर आपके एफिशिएंसी इंप्रूव हो रही है, आपकी वैल्यूएशन इंप्रूव हो रही है, आपकी अर्निंग्स इंप्रूव हो रही है. तो वे ऑनेस्ट. सो मार्केट इज समथिंग लाइक 2 थिंग्स जो कि स्टॉक में चलता है, एक PE और एक EPS. Now PE something which is what you call एक perception, and EPS is something which is your actual fact. तो अगर आपके EPS ग्रो कर रहे हैं, so market is also rewarding it with the higher multiple. But still I would say on an average अभी भी companies जो है, the sector is below or the average discount rate जो 40% के थे, अभी भी आई थिंक 30% पे 40% पे दे आर ट्रेडिंग. So there is much more value and growth into PSU sector left going forward.
So if you can just name a few specific pockets, just name it, whether it's banks, whether it's refiners, whether it's power stocks within the PSU basket, that is still a go for you.
Yeah, absolutely. So PSU, if you see the banks that we like, as in Bank of Baroda, you can talk about Canara Bank, then Bank of India, they are coming up with good numbers. Then SBI is the sector leader. And again in defense as a sector where we used to import so much of defense, now we are capable of manufacturing in India, where again the structural reform of Make in India came into the picture. And now we are thinking of exporting of also some of the defense to other countries, which is a massive shift, I would say, in thinking and what you call the execution of the schemes.
Okay.
Again, then defense maybe the things are there that you need to analyze कि आपका defense में भी अब ऐसी कंपनी जो से सपोज 20-25 साल से डिफेंस में है, who has delivered the performance and जो रही है and the market leader है, say for example HAL. Now it's a kind of a monopoly company in a defense. अभी उसके अलावा no one make helicopters and missiles and all those things which they make HAL, and they have a past record of 20, 25, 30 years. यहाँ पर they have delivered good numbers, and seeing the order book, अभी खाली order book आने से भी people get excited, but getting order and executing those orders another big challenge, which some of the companies might change, and we have to see going forward that orders are there in their books for next 8 to 10 years, but how efficiently they execute those orders and how the inventory cycle turns up and the cash flow that they can generate would be another parameter to look into it. So there are still again, जैसे डिफेंस में जैसे मैंने कहा कि आपका जो वैल्यूएशंस वगैरह है उसमें some of the companies are over trading their industry valuation, and still there's a company like HL where it is still trading below than the industry average. So these are some of the pockets. Then again, I would like a sector which I really like is infrastructure sector, as in financial infrastructure. जैसे जिस हिसाब से आपका डीमैट अकाउंट ओपन हो रहा है या पीपल आर गेटिंग इनटू म्यूचुअल फंड, इन्वेस्टमेंट लोगों का बढ़ रहा है, तो द कंपनी हु आर इनटू योर वेल्थ मैनेजमेंट और द कंपनी लाइक CDSL जिसका मोनोपोली है अगेन इन दोस काइंड ऑफ अ सेक्टर, और ई मुद्रा, दिस काइंड ऑफ इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर बिल्डिंग, मतलब बिकॉज डिजिटल ट्रांसफॉर्मेशन इज अगेन वन बिग थिंग विच हैज हैपेंड इन इंडिया. Pele, now as you come with the broking background, and me too have a broking background, we know how much pain is to be to open an account. एक डीमैट अकाउंट अगर आपको खोलना है तो उसमें 40-35 पेजेस पे पहले साइन लेना पड़ता था क्लाइंट के. वो डीमैट अकाउंट पूरा बुकलेट होता था, जाते थे एंड टेक सो मच ऑफ टाइम, बट नाउ यू कैन ओपन डीमैट अकाउंट विद इन 5 minutes. So that's a massive change, and the people are able to leverage that. जीरोधा मतलब जीरोधा जो टॉप अगर बोलेंगे आप फॉर ब्रोकर जिन्होंने इतना उनके जो पहले 1 करोड़ जो क्लाइंट अगर बने तो took so much of time, but next 1 crore client after COVID happened in just 6 months because of so much of digital infrastructure which was built and using Aadhaar and e-Aadhaar. So this kind of transformation, technology driven companies would be again preferred better over here. And the companies who are using technology to their leverage and making things fast and easy, because next Gen I or next generation of people who are there who doesn't want to go in a kirana store and shop for things, they would sit at home and order online your grocery, and in fact you all got habituated so much. So and the company like Zomato or those kind of a company where again they are coming up with the profit numbers are increasing, their EBITDA वो जो लॉस मेकिंग थे अभी प्रॉफिट में आ रहे, तो इन न्यूज में काफी अच्छा वैल्यू है. एंड गोइंग फॉरवर्ड दिस काइंड ऑफ कंपनीज आर क्रिएटिंग अ सेक्टर इटसेल्फ. आज से 10 साल पहले हम लोग फूड डिलीवरी भी एक सेक्टर हो सकता था, ये सोच भी नहीं सकते थे कि इस सेक्टर आता है, बट नाउ दे आर क्रिएटिंग दोस काइंड ऑफ सेक्टर. सो आई थिंक द काइंड ऑफ the new generation, the new companies that are coming up, you will see new sector forming in next 5 to 10 years, and new company arising out of it.
True. No, fair enough. I think point well taken, Satish. Infrastructure, technology, technological infrastructure, financial services as a space as India grows should keep on doing well. Now we'll quickly address a few sectors as well. We've already 35 minutes into our conversation and the 15 odd minutes left. We'll also take Q&A in the last 5 odd minutes. Reality is the space. So it seems it's going through a 6-year cycle. We are in the middle of the cycle. Now, most of the developer stocks have done well. So where's your take in terms of reality, the developer stocks, the ancillary stocks, and a little bit in turns? So if you can just concisely point your views, because we've got a lot of sectors to cover.
Yeah, same. So if you talk about reality as a sector, again, those last 10 साल में उन्होंने भी कुछ नहीं किया. Reality as a sector has given very nominal kind of a return, as in अगर आपके पास real estate है तो पड़ा हुआ है, and some of the investor has got stuck into some of the projects जहाँ पे उनके life savings had got stuck and उनका कुछ भी नहीं हुआ, and they are still going into court and this. But I think after the RERA was being introduced by government, वहां से बहुत consolidate हो गया, reality sector also. Now the big players have emerged, जो कि बड़े जो कि renowned builders हैं, those have again come up with a good reputation जिनका है project का. So वहां पर एक अच्छा push मिल गया उनको, जहां पर industry as a whole but consolidated. अभी अगर आप बात करो तो इन्वेंट्रीज की, तो इन्वेंट्रीज आर पहले जो कोविड के पहले जो कि इतनी इन्वेंट्रीज अनसोल्ड थी, अभी लॉन्च हो रहा है, इन्वेंट्रीज आर गेटिंग सोल्ड. सो वन आई वुड गिव अ बिग रीजन टू कोविड. सेकेंड, ये जो वर्क फ्रॉम होम था, पीपल स्टार्टेड फाइंडिंग दैट वी नीड अ बिगर हाउस और वी नीड टू गेट इन टू, क्योंकि सेविंग्स बढ़ रही है, खर्चे उतने हो नहीं रहे, तो इंटरेस्ट रेट वॉज सच ए लो रेट, पीपल कुड हैव अफोर्ड बिग हाउसेज एंड एक्सपेंसिव हाउसेज. वो वहां पर एक बड़ा शिफ्ट आया जहां पर people started buying those houses. And again, अगर I would say जो बड़ा property में contribution would be again through ESOPs and all this, the new companies that they are coming up, उनके जो employees है, they need to park their money somewhere, to big investments, so that also contributed into reality. So as you rightly mentioned that yes, they're into mid cycle, but I think there's still a little bit of upside which is left into reality. And coming to the ancillary part and the part which uh, contribute to housing, I think would be really very bullish on, because at the end of the day, अगर एक इकोनॉमी को डेवलप करना है, तो एक घर अगर बनता है तो सिर्फ वो एक घर नहीं बनता, उस घर के पीछे में यू गॉट सीमेंट going into it as a sector contributing it, then you got pipes contributing it, you got wires, you got a company like Pidilite, adhesive, furniture, Greenfly. So there are so many sectors which get affected, which actually get value, and which gets more of a profit through housing sector as in. And this is up to PM Awas Yojana, and they are coming up with a good number of houses that has given a huge boost to our economy. And going forward, I think this kind of a stocks would be doing good again. Pick and choose your good sector specific, like as I said, Pidilite sector leader hai. The company is also doing fantastically well on the earnings, and the growth trajectory is also high. So you should be investing in those kind of quality stocks where जहाँ पर अभी भी there is a huge upside, I think, remaining into the market.
Fair enough, Satish. Now let's go to the broader sense, because everybody talks about PLI schemes, how India is going to counter China, and obviously we know it's going to take time to counter China as far as manufacturing is concerned. But manufacturing, capital goods, infra as a theme is something that everybody's pegging on as far as the India growth story is concerned in the next 10 years. Any specific views here for each of these sectors, and any specific picks that you got?
Again, see, for India to develop and to manufacturing, जो है अभी, again, we are far behind in China, no doubt about it. So kind of the investment that China makes, it's around 46% in GFCF, which was I was talking a little bit earlier, capital formation. But अभी वहाँ पर क्या हो रहा है कि उन्होंने they have overspent on it. अभी there is no one to consume it. जो वहाँ पर housing state की जो हालत हुई in China, so many of builders, couple of very big builders going kind of bankrupt, जहाँ पर उन्होंने लोगों का काफी सारे पैसे अटक गए, and people are not getting their property and consumption नहीं. So now they are pushing into consumption. But India में अभी जिस हिसाब से consumption है, because we are more consumption driven economy where affluent class or the middle class is growing and going in tier 1 kind of range, जहाँ पहले एस्पिरेशन थे, सपोज हमारे जनरेशन के पहले जनरेशन के एस्पिरेशन थे कि एक घर बनाना एक बहुत बड़ा एस्पिरेशन होता था, कि एक अपना घर ले लिया तो वो भी 45-50 ईयर्स की एज में जाके होता था. बट अभी आप एक इंजीनियर जो कि पास आउट होता है, जिसकी स्टार्टिंग सैलरी से 7-8 लाख रुपीज पैकेज में जाता है, एंड ही फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल व्हाट ही डज इज ही स्टार्ट स्पेंडिंग इनटू सम मे बी बाइक, जो कि एक पहले अगर एक हीरो लेना एक बड़ा बात था, किसी भी 70-80 हजार की एक हीरो आती है, हीरो होंडा जो बाइक आती है, बट अभी वो रॉयल एनफील्ड दे आर थिंकिंग ऑफ बाइंग इट. देन gradually they are in next 5 to 7 years they are buying a home. So this kind of infrastructure and this kind of consumption, which we are in demographically, we are the young population, the youngest into the world. who will be, going forward 20, 30 years, will be the youngest working population, which is a big boost to consumption. And uh, once the government start investing, I think उसमें अब private expenditure भी आएंगे, private companies will also start making some capex. It will just multiply the growth of India, and that schemes, जो PLI schemes, जो government has announced earlier, we can see those benefits coming in coming ages. If you talk about the semiconductors, the Tatas are coming with 2 semiconductor plants again. They are developing semiconductor where we would be self-reliant in next 3 to 5 years, which would be again a very big boost to jobs or economy or sales as in consumption part of India.
Fair enough. Yeah, point well taken. I think the consumption, the per capita income is going to go significantly higher in the next 7 to 8 years. And with that, I think if you look at the per capita, as that goes up higher, I think the spending propensity goes higher as well. But any specific pockets very quickly, Satish, in capital goods, infra, because a lot of stocks, say stocks like EPP, Siemens,
Yeah,
L&T,
correct,
have
correct. So I'll go with sector leader. अगर there is an infra in a large cap, if you want to pick a stock, nothing better than L&T. He has जो कि बड़ा से बड़ा project they have were able to complete it. And if you say capital goods, then Siemens, Cummins, the valuation has gone a little bit on the higher side. If you compare ABB to them, is again trading at a lower PA, lower valuation. तो वहां पर still there is an upside left over there. So again वही है कि आपका risk and seeing the diversification in your portfolio will add up to it. So अगर if you want to do capital goods, so capital goods, I was really very bullish last one couple of years, but now I think going later into this year, those pockets, there will be some little overheated thing, and there would be some profit booking which will be coming because ये सब काफी चल चुके हैं लास्ट 1.5 2 साल 3 साल से. So again you have to be cautious into the valuation part कि जो जहाँ पर need to see the order book की earnings बढ़ रही है कि आपके ऑर्डर के हिसाब से कंप्लीट हो रहे हैं. तो L&T I would pick up in infra, then ABB, Cummins would be in your capital goods sector. So these are the companies, some of the companies which looks good to me.
Fair enough. What about crude? Because crude is expected to stay in a range because of the huge investments going into renewables. So I think
Correct.
two-part question. One, in terms of the traditional fossil fuel companies and the transition into renewables. Now, a lot of companies in renewables as a space have also moved up significantly, whether it is solar, hydro, you name any company, including the likes of SJV, NHPC, the stocks which barely move, have now
Correct.
given multi-decadal returns in just a matter of 2 years. So what is this take in terms of renewables as a space? And you still see value in that?
See, we have to go with what the government is thinking, because if the government interest into renewable energy is, and they want this to be as a upcoming sector, and they want to go carbon emission has to be, because the world is shifting towards low emission of carbon and footprints where they want zero emissions. तो वहां पर we have to follow those kind of की activity जहां पर हो रही है. So again, going into the renewable energy sources, again you have to pick up the stocks जहां पर valuation is good and where you see the quality of earnings and the focus area कहाँ पर है. And उसमें भी कई बार ऐसा रहेगा कि जहाँ पर there will be little bit of volatility, but again you have to see, analyze the order book of that companies or the execution or which या किसमें वो बना रहे हैं. Now see, if I tell you one example, Borosil Renewable, now they make solar panels. अभी it is the largest player into building a solar panel. So no matter what company come into generating solar energy, तो उनको सोलर पैनल चाहिए गया. सोलर पैनल अगर वो कंपनी बना रही है एंड इंडिया की बिगेस्ट है, that will again add up to those kind of investments, and that will make a longer term return out of it. Coming to the point of fossil fuel crude, yes, I think my take would be that prices would be in a range bound, or maybe decline from here. That's why you can see a shift in Saudi and other countries where they are also making a shift from their oil companies' earnings to maybe some other streams of earning, because they can also foresee that people, world is shifting to a more of renewable energy sources. where US is at a all-time high of producing the crude oil. So that will be in check until unless there is some, again, a geopolitical war which crops up, that might shoot up the crude oil prices. But other than that, in the normal circumstances, I feel the crude oil prices would be in check, and I see going down, so which will be very good for India, as in its import bills would be reduced. So that will add on to the physical aid to India. That's make me more bullish on yeah.
Yeah, fair enough. So any themes, Satish, that you are riding for this financial year?
Yeah, so themes would be like my first pick would be like PSU sector as in whole, like PSU, because ये जो cycle जो अभी चालू हुआ है last 1-2 साल का, this is not a small cycle. This generally take 8 to 10 years of cycle जो कि चलता है. So minimum I am seeing at least some 3 to 5 years from now on, because what I expect is अगर say suppose if the current government continues and their whatever plans that they have for capex and जो उनकी प्लानिंग है इन बिल्डिंग इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर एंड रोड्स, इलेक्ट्रिफिकेशन जो हो रहा है, जिस हिसाब से कंपनियां आ रही हैं, दे आर बिल्डिंग अप, आई थिंक दो सेक्टर विल अगेन बी गोइंग फॉरवर्ड, अच्छे रहेंगे. And then I would, my second theme would be going into affluent class, because as household incomes are increasing, so now say suppose I give an example of brushing your teeth. तो अगर आपकी इनकम से 1 लाख से 5 लाख हो रही है, तो भी आप दिन में ब्रश एक ही बार करेंगे, आप ब्रश 5 बार नहीं करेंगे. बट अगर आपकी डिस्पोजेबल इनकम 1 लाख से 5 लाख हो रही है, so you will aspire to maybe shift to a bigger house, or maybe if you have a normal two-wheeler, you aspire to get a four-wheeler, or to upgrade your car from SUV to maybe a Mercedes or BMW. So those kind of affluent segment of I think should be doing good with growing disposable income. And so what US was like, I would say, had given the growth the companies, you should study that in the year 70, 80, 1980s, the growth that those companies made. I think similar kind of a trend is arising in India also. So those sector would be preferred stocks. Again, I spoke about technology, so IT technologies, those sector, reality. So this would be some of the sector bets which I'm bullish on.
No, fair enough. Thanks for that, Satish. Just quickly before we head into the last 10 minutes, I need to take your take in terms of how you are viewing IT as a sector, right? Because if you're talking about futuristic technologies, so on and so forth, IT has to come into focus. Your view on IT, large cap, mid cap, where do the preferences lie?
If you ask me, I would still prefer mid cap IT stocks, because to go, I give you example. Say TCS का जो market cap है, and Persistent System का जो market cap है, उसमें TCS को अगर grow करना है तो उस रेट में Persistent System की जैसे 3 कंपनियां हो जाएंगी. So mid cap IT has got enough space to grow right now, and the kind of technology जो आ रही है, तो niche IT companies who are into some specific what you call जो उस segment में है, that should be doing good. So again, coming to example, say KPIT technology. Now they are into niche, only into automation of car and related to car automobiles, software and all those related products. तो अगर अभी EV अगर आप गाड़ी ला रहे हैं, if you are coming up with an EV car, तो उसमें 90% chances is there that software would be have been done by KPIT technology or those kind of a thing. Where again the segment, the niche segment, if you are catering to and coming up with AI, again the kind of return the NVIDIA has been able to generate in the US has been phenomenal. It's been crazy, and those kind of disruption would always be there in IT companies. And again, my preferred bet would be mid cap compared to large cap, because the reasons which I said you earlier, that the growth prospects is much higher, and the niche segment which they cater to gives them an edge over other large cap as a whole IT company.
Fair enough, Satish. One added element is that a lot of people have probably missed the rally, right? So what's your advice for them?
I think those who have missed the rally is still always the best time to invest, no matter what happens, because market has been making all-time high from last 20 years, 30 years, and it will still continue to do so in near future also. So what we prefer is not to time the market, rather to spend time into the market, because as history we have seen, if you, I'll give you an example. Say suppose in last 20 years, if you have missed good 10 days of the market, then your total return would have come down to 50%, and the good just 10 days. Now, irony is that those 10 days has come just after 8 worst days. So say suppose अगर आज मार्केट गिरा है, एग्जाम्पल 10%, तो 2 दिन बाद ही मार्केट है जंप टू 12% और 14%. सो टू वो टाइमिंग करना इज नेक्स्ट इम्पॉसिबल, कि अभी आज 10% गिरा है तो उसमें लोग, इट्स वेरी हार्ड टू इन्वेस्ट इनटू कि सब खराब लग रहा है, सब वो लग रहा है. सो एज मिस्टर सुनील सिंघानिया से इसकी अच्छा भाव एंड अच्छा बाजार, दोनों आपको एक साथ नहीं मिलेगा. या तो भाव अच्छे होंगे या बाजार अच्छा होगा. तो भाव, अगर बाजार गिरा हुआ होगा तो भाव अच्छे होंगे, एंड अगर भाव नीचे गिरा हुआ है तो बाजार, सॉरी वाइस वर्सा होगी. बट यस, सो दैट्स द थिंग. तो दोनों अगर एक साथ आप खोजेंगे तो यू वोंट फाइंड बोथ द थिंग्स टुगेदर. You have to invest, you have to stay invested, you have to pick some good investment bets. And again, coming to starting point where I started off with, that you have to align your behavior with what you want, what are your expectations are with your goals. वो आई थिंक प्लेज अ मेजर पार्ट, बिकॉज एक इन्वेस्टर अगर रिटर्न नहीं बना पाता है तो वो अपने बिहेवियर के कारण ही नहीं बना पाता है. देयर इज सम वे मेजर. अगर मैं बात करूँ रिटर्न की, डेटा की, जो विल बी सरप्राइज टू नो सबसे ज्यादा पैसा लोग LIC और FD में बनाते हैं कंपेयर टू मार्केट. वाई? बिकॉज वहां पर उनको पता है कि 5 साल इन्वेस्टेड है, FD कर दिया तो वहां इन्वेस्टेड है. LIC में पैसा रखे तो 15 साल उन्होंने रखा है, 10 साल रखा है, 18 साल रखा है, तो उनको रिटर्न बन गया. अभी वो कितना % रिटर्न दे रहे हैं वो कैलकुलेट करेंगे अपने एक्सेल में, तो विल बी शॉक सीइंग दैट. बट उतना लोग पेशेंस रख नहीं पाते म्यूचुअल फंड में, जहाँ 2-3 साल 1 साल होता है अच्छा थोड़ा सा बड़ा, वहां अरे नहीं 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 ठीक है बेचो निकालो, विल इन्वेस्ट, विल अगेन टाइम द मार्केट, जो कि होता नहीं है. सो आवर एडवाइस टू आवर क्लाइंट इज टू कंटिन्यू स्टे इन्वेस्टेड. अगर डिप मिले, कुछ अच्छा करेक्शन मिले, तो आप बल्कि ज्यादा इन्वेस्ट करो, यू इन्वेस्ट मोर, यू स्टे इन्वेस्ट. बिकॉज इंडिया को, एज मिस्टर लेट राकेश जुंझुनवाला सेड, कि इंडिया को शॉर्ट मत करो. इन नेक्स्ट 5-10 ईयर अगर इंडिया को शॉर्ट किया आपने तो आपके पैसे नहीं बनेंगे. बट अगर आप रहे तो आपके पैसे 100% बनने हैं. बट यस, अगर अभी अच्छे एडवाइजर के साथ में आप हैं तो आपके परसेंटेज बनने के चांसेस थोड़े से और ज्यादा बढ़ जाते हैं. वी एड अप दैट वैल्यू ऑफ एक्स्ट्रा अल्फा इनटू अ क्लाइंट पोर्टफोलियो.
No, fair enough. I think very nicely summarized, and a lot of golden words in that. I will just add our founder's ex-founder's quote. He unfortunately passed away this year, William O'Neill himself. He always used to say that I have never met a successful pessimist into the market. So I think staying invested into equity markets, having a long-term view, as Satish is saying, and assuming that equities is going to be a compounding machine over a longer period of time, is something that works. So yeah, fair enough. Satish, thanks for that. One question before we take questions from the general audience is obviously being a certified financial planner. I know there is no straight single answer to this, but what is a general thumb rule in terms of asset allocation from a financial planning perspective?
See, if you go by the thumb rule, then it generally depends on your age. If you talk about textbook theory, what they say, that if your age is 40, then your 40% has to be in your equity, and as your age goes up, then the allocation to debt should be increasing. So yeah, but I don't buy into that theory, because I think a person who is at the age of 50, 55 also, he can still invest into equities per se, if invested properly. Because you need to, so what we do is we for retirement corpus, we follow a 3-bucket strategy, where we deploy the client's fund into 3 different bucket, and every bucket has a time horizon. तो say suppose अगर आज today you are retiring और आपको 5 साल अगर रिटायरमेंट के बाद पैसे चाहिए, तो we'll keep in a safer horizon, where जहाँ पर your money is kind of a safe, you get a predicted return of 6-7%, 8%, whatever it is, of FD. And then we go into second bucket, where there is a mix of both the components of equity and debt. And then the third bucket, which is for longer horizon for 10 years, 15 years. Because अगर आप इक्विटी इन्वेस्टेड नहीं है तो इन्फ्लेशन जो है वो नेक्स्ट कमिंग ईयर्स में will eat up all your returns. And as we grow older, as we modernize more, the longevity of people surviving is increasing more. जो कि एक पहले एवरेज पर्सन यूज टू सर्वाइव से सपोज एज 70-75 थी, अभी वो बढ़ के 80-85 हो गई है. गोइंग फॉरवर्ड जो मेडिकल इंप्रूवमेंट हो रहे हैं, पीपल आर गेटिंग मोर कॉन्शियस अबाउट देयर हेल्थ एंड ऑल दो स्टफ, इट विल कीप ऑन इंक्रीजिंग. तो अभी रिस्क जो है नॉट इन्वेस्टिंग टू इक्विटी जो ज़्यादा बढ़ गया है, कि अगर आप इक्विटी इन्वेस्टमेंट नहीं है तो आपका वैसा ग्रोथ आना पूरा मुश्किल है इफ यू आर नॉट इनटू इट. सो एसेट एलोकेशन शुड बी डन अकॉर्डिंगली. And then, according to your plans, whenever you are near to your goals or plans, you should shift from equity into debt, जहाँ पर there is no unpredictability और जहाँ volatility आपकी खत्म हो जाती है and you are able to meet your goal. So that's how we allocate the asset allocation for clients.
Thanks for that, Satish. I think I'll just open the floor for a few questions before we end this session. Any guys,
Sure.
if you've got any question, I think Richu has put her hand up. Anybody just put it on chat so that we can have anything that we missed. So 2 or 3 questions we'll take, Satish.
Yeah, so you can tell me. I'm not able to see the chat over here. Okay, yeah, so chat.
Yeah, Raju, please go on. You can type your question, Raju. Satish, do you answer stock specific questions or?
No, I think it would be like little difficult on answering stock specific
guys,
questions, but
yeah, fair enough. So I think no stock specific question, guys. Anything which is macro or thematic is something that can be.
Yeah.
Anuj, he answered the question on real estate. So he's very clear in terms of his view on real estate as a sector. So Prem Kumar has a question, Satish. Why are we not seeing FI inflows even when China growth is down? Are they preferring Japan?
Correct. I think this is one of the good questions, and we missed out on discussing this part. So see, the primary reason for FI's inflow not happening to India would be 2 or 3, but I'll point out very quickly. First would be that कि अगर आपको वहाँ यूएस में ही पैसा बन रहा है, so ये कंपनीज लाइक द 7 मैग्निफिसेंट जो बात कर रहे हैं, Nvidia, Microsoft, Apple, Tesla, they have given phenomenal return into equity. Our US market is also doing good in terms of returns. I think from the time Biden has come into power, the US equities has given 36 to 38% return. तो अगर वहाँ आपका रिटर्न बन रहा है, then emerging market में पैसा आप क्यों डालोगे? Firstly, secondly, then again the bond yield जो कि पहले see, you need to understand कि short term में जो है ना पैसा आपका वो इंटरेस्ट रेट साइकिल्स पे डिपेंड करता है कि इंटरेस्ट रेट क्या है. तो शॉर्ट टर्म में अगर इंटरेस्ट रेट जब 0 था तो वहां पर आपको बॉन्ड्स में रिटर्न नहीं बनना था, तो आपके पास ऑप्शन क्या बचा? आपके पास ऑप्शन बचा कि यू विल इन्वेस्ट इनटू इक्विटीज where you will get some return out of it to beat the inflation. Now when the rate cycle again started moving up and then जहाँ पर bonds आपको high return it touched to 5.5% also. So once you compare that कि जहाँ पर bonds is giving you 5.5% and equities की yield अगर आप निकालोगे so that it was also around 5.5%. So why would an investor invest into equities compared to a fixed say bonds or securities where जहाँ पर उनके पैसे की गारंटी है, volatility is not there, so they prefer investing into that. So I see people money coming into emerging market only once the rate cuts start happening in US, where there will be devalued of dollar, where the emerging markets would be attractive. And secondly, emerging market में पैसे नहीं आने की one reason is again China. Now, a person who is an FI or institutional, I've got friends I've worked in Canada for 4 years and I have friends in US and Canada whom I speak to in hedge funds also. So वहाँ पर अभी they don't see India as an individual area, as an individual country to invest in. Unka investment philosophy is that they invest in emerging market. Now, once they invest into emerging market, it cannot be only in India. If China is not doing good, so emerging market में पैसा नहीं आएगा. अगर emerging market में पैसा नहीं आएगा, तो India would also not be getting it. अभी पहले क्या हो रहा था कि there was been emerging market ex Japan था, that कि Japan excluded and emerging market is there. But going forward, agar China is still underperforming, and then if it's not delivering return, that kind of return that they were expecting, then we might see an emerging market ex-China. Agar wo scenario banta hai, then India's share into that emerging market would be great. But till that time, that is not happening. I think coming FI flow is just a matter of time, that once the rate cut starts happening over there, and there is a flow to emerging markets where the commodities gold is also going up. So FI flow will also come into. So stay invested. And why do we need FIs? India investor is such a big company where हमारा खुद ही का investment ही नहीं है. अगर आप हाउसहोल्ड एक इन्वेस्टमेंट एज इन होल देखोगे, तो हमारा भी 5% भी इक्विटी में नहीं है टोटल 100% का सेविंग्स में से. तो देयर इज इनफ स्कोप ऑफ इंडियन कंज्यूमर टू इन्वेस्ट इनटू इंडियन इक्विटीज इन इंडियन मार्केट. सो एफआईज का पैसा आया नहीं है. वी एज एन इंडियन ऑल्सो विल बी मेकिंग ह्यूज मनी बाय इन्वेस्टिंग आवरसेल्फ इनटू आवर ग्रोथ स्टोरी इन आवर इकोनॉमी.
Oh, absolutely. The decade and the century belongs to India. You're absolutely right.
Correct. Correct.
Divyesh and Raju have similar questions. Have you identified any companies which are having a niche capability in AI or semiconductors?
The semiconductors and AI, I think Tata would be there, who are building up some plants in electro semiconductor. CG Power is another company where the management has changed, and they are also coming into your diversify into power and semiconductors. So those kind of companies would be there. And going forward, I think there are some pockets where they are not directly into AI, but yes, they are facilitating into AI, and sooner or later they will get into some big areas relating to AI. So we need to see how it plans out. Before that, I cannot disclose any names over here right now.
Sure, fair enough, Satish. I think we missed the hotel industry. Sonu has a question on the hotel industry.
Yeah, hotel industry. Abhi aap jao, they are like what you call क्या बोलते overbooked. अभी अगर आप हॉलिडे करना है तो you have to plan like 6 months before कि करना है. So जैसे होटल इंडस्ट्री का जो डिक्लाइन हुआ बिकॉज ऑफ कोविड, आई थिंक वो तो सरपास हो गया. एंड गोइंग फॉरवर्ड, द काइंड ऑफ प्लान दैट होटल इंडस्ट्रीज आर हैविंग टू ओपन द नंबर ऑफ होटल्स, एंड जिस हिसाब से टूरिज्म बढ़ रहा है इंडिया में, अभी पीपल आर रेडी टू ट्रैवल, रेडी टू डिस्पोज ऑफ देयर इनकम. अभी वो हो गया जी लो जिंदगी एक बार. अभी कोविड के टाइम में लोग इतने घर पे बैठ के बोर हो गए, सोचा कि यार अब पता नहीं कब कोविड जैसा सेकेंड थिंग आ जाए, उसके पहले घूम लो दुनिया, घूम लो इंडिया में. सो एंड मोदी जी इज ऑल्सो व्हाट यू कॉल प्रमोटिंग कि भाई इंडिया में रहो, इंडिया में घूमो, इंडिया में जगह है काफी. तो वहां पर एक फोटो ट्विटर में डालने से पीपल स्टार्टेड फ्लॉकिंग इनटू एन आइलैंड, एंड टोटल एक दूसरे कंट्री की इकोनॉमी हिल गई उस पे. सो दैट्स द पावर ऑफ इंडिया कंज्यूमर, आई थिंक. या एंड so hotel industry, tourism, everything will flourish. And one more interesting tourism would be like religious tourism, जो कि as in Ayodhya was able to generate, कि जहाँ पर अयोध्या मंदिर बनने के पहले airport and all those things were being built. In fact, we missed on those certain points where the number of airport has been just double. The air passenger traffic has been double, and going forward वो increase होगा. Now कॉमन मैन, मिडिल पैन पर्सन भी, जो पहले जैसे अगर राजधानी में ट्रैवल करना वो लाइक अ प्रिविलेज, अभी वो प्रिविलेज विलेज सब हट गया. अभी मिडिल क्लास भी आर एस्पायरिंग टू ट्रैवल. अभी एयरलाइन में ट्रैवल करना पहले प्रिविलेज होता था कि बॉस वो ही इज ट्रैवलिंग टू एयरलाइन, वो अभी वो नहीं रहा, अभी वो कॉमन हो गया. तो people are disposing their income, people are spending onto it. So all these sectors जहाँ पर खर्चा हो रहा है, see, you don't have to be too much expert into predicting it ना. जो आपके आसपास हो रहा है, जो चेंजेस आप देख पा रहे हो, उनको आप अच्छे से अगर ढंग से विजुलाइज करेंगे ना, यू विल गेट योर इन्वेस्टमेंट पिक्स ऑल्सो, इन्वेस्टिंग आइडिया. अभी एविएशन पे जैसे मैंने बात कर रहा हूँ, तो एविएशन में कितने हार्डली देयर आर 2-3 प्लेयर्स हु आर इनटू इट. सबसे बड़ा मार्केट शेयर जिसका है, जो कंपनीज का है, उन सब कंपनीज के अगर आप शेयर में इन्वेस्टेड हो, तो नो मैटर व्हाट द अर्निंग्स आर ग्रोइंग, तो यू आल्सो मेक मनी अकॉर्डिंग टू इट. एट द एंड ऑफ द डे मार्केट इज, प्राइसेस आर स्लेव्स ऑफ अर्निंग. अगर अर्निंग अच्छी है तो प्राइस आज ही तो कल चले गई ऊपर. तो या
fair enough. I think there were a few more questions by Raju, Richu. I think there were questions on Cancelim as a methodology. Guys, we hold sessions every Thursday on CanSlim, right? If you go onto our site, there are level 1, level 2 modules that have been kept ready at a very, very nominal price. So if you want to learn anything more about CanSlim, the questions that have been asked on this chat, please do that. There are some questions on taxation, which we'll take that at a later session. We've already exceeded an hour. I think Satish has to head off somewhere else as well. But thank you, Satish, so much for discussing macros, micros, sectors, financial planning, and all the aspects that investors probably need to keep in mind. And I'm pretty sure all you folks would have benefited in terms of the rich discussion that Satish shared with you as well. There's obviously a promo code that Mahalakshmi has just put on the chat that you guys can avail of. But Satish, again, thanks so much for taking time out. We'll pretty sure have more discussions as we head into the next financial year. But thanks once again from William O'Neill and team. Thank you so much for taking time out, and
Sure.
best and take care till we see you again.
Yeah, pleasure all mine. Thanks, Mayuresh. Thanks your whole team for inviting me. And again, thank you. I hope I was able to add some points into and your viewers and add some value information to your viewers. So thank you again for inviting me. Thanks.
Yeah. Let your value add, Satish. No doubts about that. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. You take care. Bye. Have a great weekend.